I'm making this video today because many of you have wondered about the motives behind some of the art that I make. So I am here to provide an explanation of one piece of fairy tale art in particular from my series Drunk in a Toy Store and Out of Tampons with Aarne, Thompson, and Cobain. The piece that I have chosen to examine, case AT Type 410, The Rape of the Sleeping Beauty in the Briar Rose, is one that I have showcasing in the upcoming ONE exhibit at ArtsWorcester. So I am going to break down for you the visual representations I have chosen to express myself in this piece. For further explanation, you can check out some of my other videos, which I have linked below, regarding the Sun, Moon, and Talia, or Sleeping Beauty. I thought I would break down each individual element step by step with you. So I want to start with the background. The background is painted on a bed frame. This is an obvious way for me to portray where the transgression and the main driving force of the story happen, which is the rape of Talia while she was under the sleeping curse. For the background, I have painted a heart that has obviously suffered some damage. The heart is her love for the king, her love for the children, and the heart of the betrayed queen. I have visually removed her heart from her body as a symbol of the removal of her identity through the curse she is under, and as a symbol of the self-love being in the background rather than the foreground. The heart has to do not only with the characters, but with us. We are in the background of all of these stories. We are the consumers and the ones being molded by them throughout the ages. In the middle lies that heart, which forms our feelings to these passages and influences our feelings and ideas about who we are. The heart in its own way is the construct of our society. Now the nails. I added about 300 or so nails to this piece. Nails are something that I use a lot and are often used in witchcraft, particularly coffin nails. They are used in binding spells, hexes, and curses. The many nails securing the bed canvas background are a way of saying her fate is sealed. She is bound to the sexual deviance she incurs while asleep, and there is no other way around that. The thorns. I have used a lot of thorns. I use the thorns because they are reminiscent of the suffering women go through in many of these popular fairy tales. Often women have to endure a tremendous amount of suffering and traumatic abuse. Much of the time it is sexually charged, which leads to their escape from some persecution or hardship. But of course, who wants to read a story where nothing bad happens? If there wasn't something to overcome, why would we read these stories? The feminine character's ability to get out of their situations is usually by marrying someone of higher class. The only ambition good women in these stories seem to have is societal ambition in marrying. Hence, the thorns protruding from her downstairs being delicately and individually painted with gold. I suffered greatly assembling this piece. I learned that thorns can give you cellulitis, and I also banged my own thumb quite a bit while navigating the nails into the tight, awkward crevices. The sun and moon behind the protrusion of thorns are obviously her children. Now let's get to the part you are all wondering about. Using the dolls. Using the dolls, the nature of which is very instinctive to me, is also very intentional and crucial in my visual explorations of these fairy tales. Many people think that I use dolls to be creepy, or that I make art for the purpose of shock value alone. Of course, none of this is true. My art is always extremely intentional and never aimed at being anything in particular. I simply use any medium I see fit to convey my points and speak the truth in the best way that I can. I choose to use dolls because they are great representations of the feminine ideal. We give these things to youngsters, particularly young girls, and they form these ideas that this is something I have to take care of. And this is the representation of women that society sees fit, so it is something that I should strive for. Women figure prominently in fairy tales. The women in these stories are written as passive and subservient beings. It is a complete embodiment of the way societies have oppressed women by making them silent and obedient. Good women in these stories are meant to be submissive and self-sacrificing. In the tales, the silence and passivity is interpreted as honorable traits for a woman to have and conveys the message to little girls that these are the most valued traits that a woman can possess. The characters are always these quiet, beautiful young women who are without ambition and very eager to marry. The goodness associated with their beauty is associated with industriousness and is usually rewarded. So you don't have to do anything or want for anything. Just shut up and look pretty. Good things will happen to you because that is what happens to girls who possess these honorable female traits. These female characters begin as objects of desire, and their beauty is what drives the story forward. On the other side of things, ugliness being associated with evil is seen as a popular character trait for women in fairy tales. If not ugliness, ambition is seen as a flawed character trait. Ambition is what makes these women ugly and bad. Most ambitious women in these tales are given terrible motives. They are scheming, evil from within, witches, sorcerers, stepmothers. Ambitious women as villains in these stories reinforce the warning to little girls of what should happen to them if they were to exhibit the non-female traits that have been structured by these stories. So in my own way, I am acting as a protagonist in these stories. I take these silent, obedient dolls and give them a story of their own to tell. I put words of truth in their mouths, which is often misinterpreted or hard for people to hear. I give life, personality, and a voice to these passive beings. I use the materials of a witch not only because of my spirituality, but also to take responsibility as the villain, like the other ambitious and outspoken women in the stories. I am not free from blame, nor am I removed or above any of the ways society, which includes the ideals in these stories, has influenced me. Because I will not be silent and subservient in my examination of these stories or my art, I seem to be keen on readily accepting the role as the evil queen or the witch or the sorcerer in a lot of what I do. I stray from the desire to make conventionally beautiful art. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate beauty, but rather it is a deeper examination of what beauty means. The ugliness of truth, which intermingles with some of the endearing portrayals through the qualities of the materials I use, are my way of challenging tradition. I want to step out of the role of keep quiet, make it look pretty, and good things will happen to you because that's how it works. My rebellion against what is seen as conventionally beautiful has a lot to do with my examination of the roles in women in these fairy tales. We like to think that we amend these fairy tales and make them better. However, they still seem to reflect certain ideals in society that shape children's and even adults' minds. More and more female characters are breaking free from the obedient, suffering silently narrative, but we still seem to hold their eager to marry and please men as the be-all, end-all to these stories and the happiness of these characters. But who doesn't love a love story? In fact, it leaves a lot of us feeling like a beetle on its back. I have read many scholarly articles about fairy tales that claim, well, women and men are equal now, and there is no more of these horrendous happenings. We don't need to examine them as much or our own stories and the way we amend them, because woohoo, everything is all fixed now and things couldn't possibly be any better, which is so untrue. That is why I feel the need to tell these stories as they were and explore that narrative. Why I'm here to explain all of these things to you. The drastic change in social values is often forgotten or lost. It is important to know the history behind these tales. It shows us how we got here and sheds light on the reasons behind the formation of problematic values within our current culture. It gets to the root of things. Now let's get to the last element I want to talk about, the blindfold. Now I've blindfolded this doll, not only because of the sleeping curse she is put under, but because she is blind to all of these facts. It is representative of the blindness formed by the women in this story, and the blindness toward and the forgiveness of abuse. The woman who should be pissed about her rape ends up loving her abuser. And the queen's hatred turning to Talia, rather than the unfaithful king, speaks to our culture of victim blaming. The blindfold is not only placed on Talia, but all who consume these stories and walk away with the implicated societal values, particularly what it means to be a good woman versus a bad woman. So in my piece, you are Talia. You are the one that I have placed the blindfold on. But hopefully my explanation, like my art, has played some role in removing that blindfold.